My name is Keegan Donovan.
My name is Brian Donovan, and we are New York Dairy.
So I grew up in LaGrange, which is about 10-15 minutes from here. A friend had a dairy farm that I met in high school, and I kind of took an interest in it. And then, of course, when I met my husband, who was a dairy farmer already, that's kind of how I ended up here.
So growing up, I had no experience with the dairy industry. I just always kind of took it for granted that milk was just there in the store. And as I worked for this fella painting his barn, kind of learned the ins and outs of the industry, how big it was, what it entailed, and it really captivated me. And a couple years later, ended up buying his herd of cows and moving them up here to Dutchess County.
I met Brian and he was just shipping milk. And then, as I kind of came into the fold, I, suggested that maybe we diversify into some direct-to-consumer sales or beef, and that's kind of where Millbrook Beef and Dairy came about.
So a normal day on the dairy farm starts about 4 o'clock. Come down, do the chores, feed the cows, start milking around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Typically, the cows are milked twice a day, cleaned twice a day, and fed twice a day.
So we do our Black Angus beef, pork, we raise chicken, our cheese is made right from our milk here. We offer some other dry goods from local, maple syrup farmers or granola producers. Everything in our farm store is within 15 miles of the store itself. So we work with McGrath Cheese Company. They come here to our farm, 3-4 times a week. They pick up milk and then they take it and they turn it into cheese. We have our own kind of recipes and our own flavors that are just unique to Millbrook Beef and Dairy. And I think that's probably one of the most fun endeavors that we have, is working with him.
The dairy industry in New York is very strong and vibrant, and we're all very passionate about what we do. And if you ever have an opportunity to reach out and talk to somebody like myself or a fellow dairy farmer, please do.
When our milk leaves the farm, we don't necessarily, get to actual meet the individuals that consume that product. It was really cool to have, people kind of come in and say, hey, I had this cheese or I had this product, and, actually sell, as the producer, sell that product to the consumer and then, get to talk about it, which I think is a pretty rare thing.
Not only is it rewarding to interact with the consumer, but it's also interesting to work with the animals, very rewarding. You work outside, and the good days tend to outweigh the bad days here on the dairy farm.
Having gone to school for nursing, I never thought that I would get up every day and work with the soil and work with cows, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And if you have an opportunity and you're interested, I would strongly recommend pursuing it.
I would strongly, encourage somebody to look into the dairy industry, not only as a producer, but also the supporting cast that we work with.
I have 2 young kids, one's 2.5 and one just turned 1. And I couldn't have asked for a better life for them to kind of grow up and see how food is produced.
So I think the dairy industry, the dairy farmer plays a pretty important role, not only in producing a product, but also educating the consumer. So any chance we have, I kind of take it upon myself and really encourage other farmers to educate the consumer.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, to get that product, that milk in their glass or their cheese on their pizza. There's real people like us and my husband and everybody from the truck driver to the bottler at the plant. It's a really complex process that, all of us are in it because we love it.